This podcast is intended for mature audiences and contains adult language and subject matter. Listeners, please be advised.
And hello from Austin, Texas. This is another episode of Drinking with Your Ex. I am Blake Thompson.
And I am Bonnie Neal, and welcome back, guys. This is another episode of this podcast, which you know, Blake and I are exes. We dated back in the day, a long time ago. Now we find ourselves both single and over 40 with really strong opinions that, if you listen long enough, seem like accurate facts about why we are single and over 40 still.
You know why we're single and over 40, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening.
It's part of why you tune in. You're like, this is my favorite ongoing train wreck. Keep it coming, keep it coming. But we have a very special episode today. This will be our first interview. You know, if you've been a fan of the podcast, you realize that usually this is just Blake and I talking about subjects, but we are going to start bringing in some guest experts or guest opinions, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. So this is our first interviewee, and it is Jamey Young, our sound engineer, and we'll kind of get to introducing him later. But the main things you need to know about this podcast is it has 3 rules.
The first rule is each episode is inspired by some type of cocktail and or beverage
that relates to this week's topic or this week's guest. And the second rule is that Blake and I get to introduce the other, thus engaging in the always fun edge play about having your ex write your Tinder profile to the world. And then the third rule is...
The third rule is each one of us gets to ask the other an uncomfortable question based on today's topic.
No backseas, no rules. We have left it to the guest about whether or not he wants to ask us uncomfortable questions or he wants us to ask him an uncomfortable question. It would be a game time decision, but we realize that uncomfortable questions have to be fully consensual. But anyway, so thank you guys for tuning in for this. This is our inaugural interview episode. We're very excited about it. And let's just launch into it.
Right on. Ladies and gentlemen and loyal listeners, I want to introduce our sound engineer.
You're hopping ahead, man. You're just like a handsy prom date. You forgot rule number 1, dude.
Rule number 1, yes. So, Jimmy, since you're on, you can cut that part off since Bonnie just totally cut me the fuck off.
I think it was right. I think, whatever. You're so sensitive. All right, rule number 1.
You don't say.
You wish. Anyway, rule number 1 is this week's episode is brought to you by what Jamey Young says his favorite current cocktail is. And the moment I heard this, I was like, really? All right. So keep in mind that Jamey is my brother-in-law. I don't know if any of you guys know that. So he is the very strong man who willingly agreed to marry my sister. Thank you. But on a whole, neither one of them are big drinkers. And so I was like, yeah, no, Jamey, whatever you want to recommend to drink. And he's like, moonshine. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Butter pecan moonshine, to be exact.
Old smoky butter pecan moonshine with a little bit of Sprite is Jamey Young's favorite cocktail right now. And I'm like, makes sense. Somebody who doesn't drink, if you're going to drink, make it sure it's fucking moonshine. So there we go. This week's episode is brought to you by Old Smoky Butter Pecan Moonshine with a little bit of Sprite.
A splash.
A splash, just a splash. There we go. And now, all right, second rule is introductions. Blake, would you like to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. Allow me to introduce our sound engineer extraordinaire who makes us sound fabulous every week for all of you.
Oh my God.
Jamey Young. We would not be here without him. Jamey Young is a fantastic sound engineer and also a musician to the local Austin scene, who's currently not playing right now, so we need to get him into another band. Anybody listening, let us know.
He's an amazing musician and an amazing sound engineer, and kind of makes us sound less like idiots, as you will learn in this interview. He has a lot of clips.
Hashtag blooper reel.
Oh yeah, totes. But Jamey, you're about welcome, and I understand you have introductions for both Blake and me.
Yes. Hello, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate this. I'm glad to be here.
You're behind the looking glass today.
Right.
Looking glass, absolutely. I can introduce you to, if y'all would like
Do
me
it,
to.
do it, do it.
Okay, I love you. Right? Okay.
That's what this podcast is about. Love. Go ahead.
Everybody, let me introduce to you Blake Thompson's ex, Bonnie Neal. This lovely young lady, who also happens to be my sister-in-law, is probably one of the most talented, lovely people I've ever met. Glad to have her in my life. And when she walks into a room, it just usually lights up. She'll steal your heart with a smile, but if you ever fuck her over, she'll feed it back to you with a nice Chianti and some frosty.
Hashtag accurate.
I mean, thank you. That's really sweet and totally on brand. Accurate. Thank you, Jamey.
I don't think that you would ever result to cannibalism, but you making somebody else do it, is possible.
Thank you. Not quite sure. I feel like there's a compliment in there somewhere that I would not personally resort to cannibalism, but I am totally capable of manipulating somebody else to do it for me.
Hashtag more accurate.
Fuck off, Blake. All right, Jamey, introduce Blake.
Yeah, while we're on this roll, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Bonnie Neal's ex, Blake Thompson. This gentle giant of a man has led quite an interesting life. Really enjoyed getting to know him over the last several years. Would like nothing more than for this man to be in my corner if the shit ever went down. Because if it did, then I would finally get to see what it looks like when a Wookiee pulls somebody's arms out of their socket. Hashtag let the Wookiee win.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. That is also accurate.
Accurate. Hashtag accurate. I love it. That was good.
Those were really nice.
Yeah. All right. So rule number 1 and 2 out. So let's just launch into this interview and see where it goes with us. So yeah, Jamey, I mean, you have gotten to know both of us, I think, really well in this. I believe we're, well past 20 episodes that you've been sound engineering for us. And I would say with Blake, because you knew Blake for a while, but this is kind of like a way to get to know Blake. What has been the most interesting thing you've learned about either Blake or I in listening to us?
Oh, wow. Is this the uncomfortable question?
Oh, shit.
Already?
Oh, no, I thought it'd be easier. Like, that Blake squeaks chairs like a spaz is what I was going for, but that's okay.
No, wow. What have I learned new about you? That was the question, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what? I can start with an easier question. Do you want to do that?
Well, yeah.
We'll save that one for later.
We'll save that one for later. What did you think when I asked/begged you to take over the audio of our podcast? Were you excited or were you aware that this was going to be a perfectionist minefield you were willingly taking on?
I was excited about it because it was a venture that I had not taken on before. Most of my audio engineering has to do with bands and music and whatnot, and I never actually done any editing with podcast. I've done a little editing for videos, not movies per se, but editing audio to video, that kind of thing. But I had never actually edited a podcast. So when you brought up the idea that you guys were doing this, number one, I thought it was a great idea because I've sat around and listened to you guys banter and talk shit. Highly entertaining every time, we all get together and just sit around and shoot the shit even. It's extremely enjoyable. And I knew that you guys would do a good job with it. So I was excited about it. Plus, it was a new venture for me to get to do something that I hadn't done before in the audio world.
All right. Well, and what did you think about those first 4 episodes guys, if you listen to the first season, the first 3 episodes are definitely 100% my fault, right? Because I knew nothing about audio equipment or recording equipment. I self-taught on Google University, and in a shocking turn of events, that was wrong. So the first 3 episodes, the first 4, and then, I hired a professional. Jamey came in and he corrected us. What did you think about those first 3 episodes that you, frankly, did some amazing magic on to make them as listenable as they are?
Well, of course, my first reaction was, woo, okay, they need a little bit of help. But I must preface this with, you did not do such a bad job, Bonnie, because there are podcasts out there. There are podcast channels that have 100,000 subscribers, and their recordings sound worse than your first 3 did. So give yourself a little bit of credit. You did okay.
All right, right on.
Yeah.
You probably weren't aware that you were getting somebody that is so anal retentive that they're going to be listening for every little fart, crackle, pop. And, that's That's one of the things that, I bring probably a little too much of. I need to relax the reins a little bit and let you guys just, be you instead of, trying to make you sound. There's no way that I make you guys sound smarter. I just make your flow a little better. But, you don't really need a whole lot of help with
Oh
it.
my God, you are so humble and so flattering. We're going to have you around all the time.
And
Just
so
tell us
kind.
how awesome we are. Just keep it coming, Jamey. My response to that is I've known you a while. I am aware that anal retentive is one of your personality traits. Yes, yes, yes. I did not know how much time you would spend on each one of our episodes. And I've, frankly, been utterly enjoying the exploitation of your perfectionism for our own benefit. That was awesome. But also you have made us sound much more professional than I think this, kind of ragtag
Absolutely.
show was worth. Right. You brought a professional veneer to us that we definitely needed.
Well, you guys made it easy because like I said, you can always polish a turd, but it's still a turd. But you guys, you actually give me something to work with, and so I do a little tweak here and there, and we clean it up a little bit, and what we come out with is a pretty damn good podcast, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I absolutely agree.
I'm biased, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little biased myself. So.
Jamey, I have a question for you. What was the funnest part of the learning curve in doing the sound editing and engineering for the podcast?
That was a shock. I had no idea. Well, of course, being anal retentive and me trying to pick out every little thing that I thought needed to either go away or come out or whatever. I needed to scoot this together or spread this apart or whatever. I really went to town on those first couple of episodes, mainly because we really had to do a lot of work on those first three. But what was interesting to me, the first thing was the amount of time that actually goes into editing a podcast was more than I was expecting. And it's a completely different world than doing audio like for music. Mixing a podcast is very different than mixing a song.
How so?
There's a lot of elements when you're mixing a song, dealing with a whole lot of different elements, different instruments, more than one voice usually, an entire drum set, guitars, bass, keyboards, whatever. And there's things that you can, I don't want to say, bad performances or whatever, but there's little things that are hidden by other instruments or whatever that you don't really have to worry about. It doesn't have to be 100%. It can still sound human, if that makes any sense.
Right.
But it's different when all stripped down to just two voices.
Okay.
It's just two voices. And, to make two voices, to make it where everything is flowing nicely and it sounds like a conversation that is just flowing naturally. Because sometimes as human beings, we speak and it doesn't flow very naturally at all. I'm the worst about it. And we all use crutch words, but making it gel, and so that when I can go back and listen to it and you guys just sail right through it like you already knew what you were going to say, you knew what your response was going to be to each other, just it happens right away. You guys sometimes sit there and go, let me think about that for a minute. And I'm able to edit that out to where one of you asks the question, immediately the other person answers it. So
yes,
that's been kind of the interesting thing, kind of a juggling act. It's been exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I get to learn. I get to get on my voyeurism a little bit. I get to listen and learn.
That was actually my follow-up question for you. How does it feel when Bonnie and I are emotionally eviscerating each other for the listening pleasure of the world? And you're the first person to hear it.
You are, besides us happening. Like, how does it feel to edit the uncomfortable questions?
That's it's kind of heavy sometimes. It's usually after the first one is asked and the first person that goes, oh man. I pause it and I get up from the desk and I go take a break.
Oh.
And I gotta prepare for this because I don't know what's coming and I don't know how deep and heavy this is gonna get. Because you guys are usually pretty lighthearted through most of the podcast.
Until we get to this point.
Some of these uncomfortable questions are extremely heavy. They're uncomfortable for me, and all I'm having to do is listen to the damn thing.
You're not having to live them or answer them, but just wait. Just saying. Yeah, I mean, Voyeuristic is one word that you use sometimes describing some of the first experiences editing us. And do you remember the first time you felt like you were a voyeur? Do you remember what you were referring to on that one?
I don't remember specifically what it was because you guys dropped so many fucking bombs. You know, I don't remember which one it was. I know it was one of the first ones, and I was like, "Oh, should I really be listening to this?" And then I'm like, "Oh yes, they're doing a podcast, so everybody's going to hear this." So good on you.
What is the threshold you have? Because you've done this a few times where you have reached out to me being like, Bonnie, are you serious? You want to do this? Are you sure? Do you want me to say this? Is it because you know I would be uncomfortable, or is it because it's just makes you uncomfortable? It's just like a wildly uncomfortable topic, or like what trips that switch that you reach out and you're like, are you guys sure you want to do this?
Really, what I try to do is I try to put myself in the position of any listener out there or any potential listener out there. And if it's something that could turn somebody off or, I don't want to say make them uncomfortable because I don't have a problem making people uncomfortable usually. That's, however they deal with it, they deal with it. And sometimes being made to feel uncomfortable is a good thing because we learn more about ourselves.
Growth experience.
But I don't want to alienate anybody, and I definitely don't want to out anybody that doesn't want to be outed. So,
That's fair.
Those are the places that I would draw a line. And that's usually when I reach out and go, do you really, we've tried real hard not to have people's names dropped, which is a good thing. And, we try to avoid certain things just to, because we want as many people listening to this as we can have listening to this, because I believe that even if you're not over 40 and dating, there's still shit to learn.
Oh,
and people can learn listening to y'all's podcast just about trying to be a better human being.
Yeah, I think that is sort of thank you for saying that, first of all. But I think that is the kind of takeaway from us is like we're obviously bad at dating. That is not a mystery to anyone anymore, but we're definitely committed to continuing to try to learn how to be a better human. And that does seem to be the main takeaway from our podcast, because I don't think we're going to ever get a date from this podcast, Luke. I think that ship has sailed. And, I would worry about somebody wants to date either of us after listening to this. I'm like, are you sure? Did you recently take out a life insurance policy?
Especially some of our newer listeners. #EdgePlay.
Make better choices.
I've come to the conclusion that neither one of you are not good dating material. I think you guys have decided not to settle on just anybody to date, because you can date anybody. You can date as often as you want to. But I think you guys have decided, you know what? I'm tired of the meat market. I want something that's real, meaningful, that might have a future, that I want to find somebody that can put up with my bullshit. And that's just kind of my thought about this whole thing, because I'd date either one of you. But, I can't date you, Bonnie, because you're my sister-in-law.
That'd be weird. Yes.
Jamie, I'll be the big spoon. It's okay.
Cool. I'll fit right in.
It was so funny. You're like, you guys just don't seem to want to settle. And I'm like, follow-up question. So when you married my sister, did you feel like you were settling?
See, there's a whole story there, though, Bonnie. I mean, it wasn't just like we got together and we're like, hey, let's be a couple. No, there was a long, hard road before any of that. I mean, we got to know each other. We were friends, and we were talking about some pretty deep stuff in each other's lives, but we were just friends. And your sister was somebody that I could talk to about what was going on in my life, and she was very receptive to not acting like she was going to try to fix me, but just to listen to, what was going on with me. And that's how it started. And we just started off as friends, but it went on for about a year. And then we dated long distance for like 2 years. So yeah, it wasn't a quick thing. And the last thing I was wanting to do was get into a relationship with somebody, because I was in that I'll date anything mode at that point. I don't care as long as well, we won't go there, but yeah, I was deeply in the meat market at the moment, and being in a committed relationship again was not something that I was looking for.
And to be fair, if my memory serves, neither was she. I'm trying to remember, like, were you 40 when you and her met and dated? Because She was, God, how many years ago was it? So 04, right? Yeah, 2004, something like that. So she was not yet 40, but were you?
Shit, I don't know. I can't do math. How old was I in 2004?
You were born in 67,
Yeah,
37. So yeah, no, not quite.
I wasn't in my 40s yet. I was in my late 30s. Yeah, she was 28 when we started dating, and I was 35 something.
You know, and yeah, so it's a larger age difference than Blake and I had, but you seemed much less of a cradle robber than he did.
Thanks.
Well, it was later in life, you know.
Yeah, 28 and 34 is not as big a difference as 19. It's fine. And 25.
Well, it's that teen at the end of it that makes the difference. The teen makes it sound worse than it really is.
I mean, I just love that about learning that about last episode about age is like just how uncomfortable it makes Blake feel. I'm like, great, this is the best. Is like the gift that keeps on giving. I was a teenager when we met. It's just so much fun to say continuously.
And he still has skin like a teenager.
Thank you. So true. Were you talking about my pimple? That's what you were talking about. Fuck you. Fuck you. That's just mean. Like, fuck off.
Hey, you got it, Blake. You got your first fuck you, Blake.
No, I think she had one earlier. It was kind of quiet.
It's the under the breath. Fuck off, Blake. Yes.
That's something that I've enjoyed. It's like a Where's Waldo when I'm editing now. I get to listen to the fuck you, Blake.
Excellent. New podcast life goals, everybody.
I mean, we could eventually turn it into a drinking game.
Okay, so what minute do you think Bonnie will drop the fuck you, Blake?
No, just every time Bonnie says fuck you, Blake, you take a shot.
Well, some episodes might be more painful than others. Ladies and gentlemen, drink responsibly.
Yes, drink responsibly.
Another question for you, though. Are you looking forward to would you be interested in doing this for other podcasters? Being a sound engineer for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would be, sure. I would love to help out, you know, if anybody else is having problems or they're not happy with the quality of their production that's coming out and they need some help with it, I would love to be a part of it. And if I could get enough people wanting me to do that for them, I could stop doing the installation work that I have to do for my real job. So
Okay, right on.
I wouldn't be climbing ladders. Yeah. So, you know, but yeah, no, I would love to. And if I could do that full time, that would be awesome. But also know that, you know, I grew up in this industry. I became a sound engineer because I couldn't afford one as a musician. So I had to learn how to do it myself. So I know that artists and people who are performing, a lot of times, especially starting out, don't have a lot of cash flow. And so having somebody come in and do a professional edit production of your stuff is unfeasible sometimes. So, you know, but I'd be willing to talk with some people about it and see what we could get worked out. But the problem is I've done this long enough to where just being an audio engineer, not necessarily podcast, but Bonnie is my sister-in-law and I love her dearly. And yes, she does get the family discount. You know, it does cost money. You know, if you want it done professionally, you have to pay for it. So, but I would be willing to, you know, I would love to have other people say, hey, you know, we're doing this and we like what we hear you're doing there. You know, can you help us out? Sure.
Right on.
Well, I think one of the interesting things we learned, and you definitely helped with this, is that, you know, it's worth investing in good equipment. And that, you know, your job, I think, got exponentially easier once you helped us upgrade to the mixing tablet thing, whatever, the mixing box that's on the desk, and these amazing
yes, this thing covered in lights that Bonnie and I look at in awe every time we do this weekly.
And kind of like act like chimpanzees around. I'm like, ooh, press all the buttons. Yes, you know, but the and then the high quality microphones, and you know, that I think has made your life a lot easier. It's made us feel fucking important as shit, so that has definitely improved some things. And you know, the first how to start and the amount of bad equipment I bought before deciding to hire an expert. The quality of the capture, I think, influences a lot of things.
That is the pinnacle. That is the most important. And that's what most people don't realize, not just in podcasts, but in all types of recording. It's all at the capture. It is worth the time and the money to buy good. It doesn't have to be the best. It doesn't have to be top of the line, but you definitely want to buy middle of the line professional grade equipment when you start, because the mistake that most people think is, oh, we'll just record it. It doesn't matter how it sounds. We can fix it later. No, because as I said earlier, you can polish a turd, but it's still a turd. So if your capture is good to begin with, then once you polish it, it just makes it shine brighter. It's just if you have a good capture, everything else just comes out much better, much better. So that's the most important thing, is when you capture it initially.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I've basically just been trying to offer up our really fucking amazing top of the line podcasting recording equipment to all my friends, or anybody who wants to do it, just because we've gone through the process. And at the very least, you at least know how to edit a capture here, even though Blake's chair squeaks.
And you want to stab me to death before it?
Yeah, Jamie, that's my follow-up question. Like, so what are the things you hate about editing both of us that we do that fucking annoy you? And I assume you have a blooper reel.
I did preface this whole interview with, you guys know I love you.
We do. So now you can deliver the truth like a hammer to the face. Go for it.
There's still some technical things that we could iron out, and that's on me. I would just have to come over while you guys are actually doing a podcast and, make some more final adjustments. I think there's still some final tweaking we could do. I still think there is some acoustical treatment that we could probably do in y'all's recording area that would help a little bit with the reflections that are still going on. But none of that's really bad right now. And it comes out, the recordings are coming out great. You guys sound wonderful. You both have great voices.
What does that mean? That seems to be the most consistent compliment that we get. They like, you have such a great voice for a podcast. And I'm like, is that like a backhanded way of saying you're ugly? Right? Is that a backhanded way of saying
you have a face for radio, Bonnie?
You've got a face made for radio. And I'm like, thank you. What does a good podcast voice mean? And the only thing I can think of is it's lower registry. That's kind of what they're meaning. That all of these years of smoking cigarettes and drinking whiskey are suddenly fucking paying off. Yay. But what does that mean, a good podcast voice?
You know what people are referring to when they talk about timbre according to a voice or a sound, timbre.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically the color of a sound and whether it's pleasing or not. And the color of a sound, that people are like, what? It's like, blue flavored Powerade. There's no such thing. Blue is not. Right. It's the color of a sound. And some sounds are soothing. Some sounds are grating. Ocean waves, soothing. Nails on a chalkboard, grating. And think about, the difference between, let's say, Bonnie, the difference between your voice and Gilbert Gottfried's voice. I could listen to your voice, no problem, for an hour. Gilbert Gottfried, I can really only listen to him for about 10 minutes. And then I'm like, I can't do it anymore.
I mean, for me, that's the difference between speaking very nasally, right? Because that's where you get the sharp voices, as opposed to the Isaac Hayes approach to the hey, baby, don't you cut out now. Or just taking it lower into the throat. But is basically just how the voice is. Is it coming through your nose or is it coming through your throat? That's beginning and end. I know about voice training. There you go.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with it. That's why I think y'all's voices are good for podcasts, because they're pleasant to listen to.
Right on.
Blake's got that gruff manly.
Manly.
But it's
Man, you're
not,
just so full of compliments. Manly. You're so manly, Blake. All right. So this is a topic that I believe I've spoken about with Blake and I've spoken about with Jamie. So this is the first time I want you guys to get in the conversation that you both had with me separately. But it is something that is called breaking the fourth wall, right? And Blake and I, what I've noticed about us from the transition from season 1 to season 2 is, part of what was, I think, so successful about season 1 is that it did sound like we were recording essentially a private conversation, right? The idea behind drinking with your ex is that you are at the end of the bar listening to two people right next to you have a very fucking personal conversation that you're just sort of overhearing. And there's an eavesdropping voyeuristic thrill to it. And what I've noticed is as we've done more of this and it has gotten popular and we have gotten feedback and we have had strangers come up to us and say, I don't talk to my mother either, Bonnie. And I'm like, I need you to tell me your name first before you say that to me. That we both have become aware that we're not just talking to each other, we're also talking to an invisible audience. And I call that as like breaking the fourth wall. And I've noticed it in season 2, or at least I've noticed that Blake has a tell. What, like he literally like turns to the audience and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, just to be candid, I've done this before," right? That he deliberately breaks the fourth wall with between the two of us talking and then turns to this invisible audience out there, right? How is that? Is that good, bad? I think that is a natural progression from us moving from this idea that it was just the two of us and then coming to something bigger. But what do both of you guys think about that? Jamey, you go first.
Me go first? I tend to, I'm more engaged in the conversation when y'all don't break the fourth wall. And when you do break the fourth wall, it needs to be, I feel like it needs to be less pointed out. Don't make the announcement that you're fixing to break the fourth wall. Just do it. Like Blake, like Bonnie says, and she does it too, but she slips it in the middle of a sentence. She says "ladies and gentlemen" as well, but she'll be in the middle of her sentence, and then she'll say "yes, ladies and gentlemen," and she'll just continue on, and she'll break the fourth wall. You will stop and go, "Yes, ladies and gentlemen," just to be candid, and that has become kind of a tag for you, Blake.
Noted.
And you don't have to do that, because usually what you say is, "Yes, ladies and gentlemen, just to be candid, Bonnie likes to call me out on whatever it may be." You don't even, that whole first part is not necessary. Just think about it as if you were having a conversation and somebody else is sitting there in the room and you're talking to Bonnie, but now all of a sudden you're going to talk to that person. You're not going to turn to that person and go, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen." You're just going to talk to them. And I think the podcast it's kind of jarring to me. And that's just my opinion. But I try to think of it as a listener and not just as an audio guy. It's more jarring to me when y'all stop it, a hard stop like that, and an intentional wall break, than it is when y'all do it in a very natural conversational way.
Yeah, perfect.
Does that make sense at all?
Actually. And something that I know I can correct myself on, because I know in the first season earlier on, I was pretty unaware of the audience a little bit.
So was I.
Where it was just very surreal realizing there's a bunch of people listening to us as we sit there and eviscerate each other for their entertainment.
Well, and we were making fun of it right in the beginning. Our 5 listeners, right, in Peoria, Indiana, right? Shout out. We were doing this as some sort of like literal, just frankly, maybe narcissistic circle jerk, right? Where we were just recording it really was a private conversation between the two of us, and we were recording it. And as we became aware of the audience and became aware of the listeners and became aware that this was, I hear us do it more. And honestly, this is why I started hopping your ass about I'm the nice one, Blake's not, right? Blake's just sucking up to you guys, because you do it when you're feeling defensive. And it does seem like it's a disclaimer of so Bonnie just said some fucked up shit, and I'm, ladies and gentlemen, to be perfectly candid, she's right, but right, it does feel like, members of the jury, please disregard the, inflammatory statements of the prosecutor.
Objection.
Kind of, yeah. And I'm like,
yes. Blake also does it when he is kind of telling on himself. If you're going to, especially when you say, "Ladies and gentlemen, to be perfectly candid, I am a shithead." That's how you approach those conversations sometimes. And I totally get that, but you don't. I think it would come across smoother and less jarring. And like I said, this is just my opinion. So your audience may totally disagree. They may like it. But I feel like there's a time in the very beginning of y'all's podcast and at the end for y'all to address the audience directly, and even use the term "ladies and gentlemen," "boys and girls," or however you identify, however y'all want to address the audience directly and pull them in with a name or an address. That's the time to do it, is in the beginning of the podcast and at the end when y'all are getting ready to sign off. But in the middle of when y'all are in the conversation, I personally feel like you guys should make it maintain the conversational aspect. And if you're going to address the audience, address them as if they are sitting right there having the conversation with you.
What would that even look like? Yeah, I mean, can you give me an example about how that would sound like? Either one of you? I mean, I don't know. Or is it just something like that, of being like, Blake, you know, we're talking about Blake, and then like, Jamey, are you right about that? You know, just sort of a shout out to the audience of like a jury or a referee. I think that's what it is sometimes we talk to the audience as if they're a jury, and there is going to be a judgment rendered later.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to ask them a question, then you do have to say, you know, ladies and gentlemen, or some way to pull them in and say, hey, you know, I'm going to ask you a question. But if you're just making a statement, let's say Bonnie, you and I were talking. We're having a conversation about, I guess, audio. And Blake was sitting there and you and I were talking, but I needed to tell Blake something. You know, I probably just screwed that whole scenario up. I wouldn't turn to Blake and say, and ladies and gentlemen, and Blake, you know, I would turn to Blake and say, you know what? Bonnie is absolutely right about
That's my favorite
this.
sentence ever. Go ahead.
Thanks for feeding her that, Jamey. Fuck.
Bonnie is absolutely right. Always. Go ahead. Yes. That's the best opening line. Continue.
Well, it could also be, Bonnie is so full of shit. I can't believe we're sitting here listening to this. But I didn't have to say, ladies and gentlemen, Bonnie is so full of shit.
You didn't have to like turn to the spotlight and step, what was it, stage front, stage back, or, you know, like center stage. You have to step center stage for the spotlight to say, and now look at me, right? And this was a note I got when I was in Toastmasters about public speaking, is that I do sometimes talk like I'm a theater kid as opposed to a public speaker, because I sometimes look up at the ceiling, so I'm talking to the invisible mezzanine, right, of my theater. You know, using the plural you, right, and not keeping it private.
And I know, like, for me, I'm learning how to be a better speaker in this role.
Yeah, me too.
And like getting this type of feedback is really valuable for me. So these are some things that I can look out for and stop myself before I do it.
Yes. I mean, the same. And I do like to remind everybody that we actually are drinking. And so there is a limitation to how much of crutch words and, you know, things that can happen because we have been drinking.
And there are sometimes Bonnie has this beautiful, fantastic wallow booze that we record in front of.
Right.
And we walk up and says, and first thing Bonnie says when we're sitting down, what do you want to drink?
Mm-hmm.
And we turn and ponder at this wall as if every answer to life, the universe, and everything is going to fall off of it.
Well, there's some beautiful whiskey up there, I must say. That's
Absolutely.
I have a very nicely curated whiskey collection right now. But yeah, and you know, I know that is my crutch word. So is definitely mine.
Oh yeah, play you something, Bonnie, that has that, gives an example of that.
I mean, I don't really want you to, but I will. Yes, I will.
I'll take it. I'll be the heavy on this one. I'll take the hit for the team on it. Yes, Jamey, I would love to hear this because I know I'm on it too.
Do it.
Here's a little edit of some of the clips I have to cut out from you guys when I'm doing editing. I hope you can hear it on your end, but here, I'll play this for you.
All you trusty drinkers and listeners, we can
stare at each other while the other and wallow and
I never as
we're gonna have some stickers coming in back.
you know, we'll get into that.
Fighting was a sport.
That was yeah, that I still have to work at that. I'm not but yeah.
Anger landmine. It's where it's because I've said this.
Well, I mean, but you forgive me.
But like back. Yeah, you all like you just to get
feels that way, right? It feels and it can be it is.
So yeah, there's a little bit.
I don't know what you're trying to say there, Jamey. I mean, I sound brilliant there.
Jamey, I thank you for the correction. I thank you for the correction on this, so I know what to listen for and not do.
See, Jamey, I told you, like, you could just tell him that. Like, you guys need to communicate directly. not ask me, because he takes it very personally when I criticize him, almost like I'm his ex-girlfriend offering unsolicited opinions on his life.
Yes, as she said, there sloshes a glass of whiskey at me while she's doing it. Sal!
He gets weirdly defensive on shit. I don't know why. Weird.
The thing is it's hard for me to criticize you guys at all because what you're doing is not easy. I couldn't do it as smoothly as you guys do.
Yes.
And I hate to see I have to edit myself on this particular episode. That's going to be fun. So, it's not an easy thing to do. And it's real hard for me to criticize you guys because it's not really a criticism. I'm always coming at it from a producer kind of.
It's a stage note. That's what it is. I take it as Blake and I was making fun of him, but we're both theater kids.
Yeah.
And so we're both, used to getting stage notes on the performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And like any type of feedback, I am absolutely open for.
He's not as sensitive and fragile as he comes off, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, look at you breaking the fourth wall.
Mm-hmm. He's not the nice one.
So far.
Fuck you, Blake.
That's perfect timing. Thank you, Jamey.
So, do we have uncomfortable questions for anybody today?
Well, there we go. So we got to start with Jamey. Do you have uncomfortable questions that you want to ask us?
Oh, wow. I know I was supposed to think about that, but I really didn't.
A few moments later.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Oh, yeah. You got to use the sound effects. Bonnie gets mad if I even look at those buttons.
So you're not allowed to touch those fucking buttons. You are untrustworthy with those goddamn buttons. Jamey has a sense of timing and professionalism. You just want to have random sound effects, usually involving wah, 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 just whenever you don't want to answer a question.
Yeah, just because I want to watch Bonnie turn beet red and watch the vein in the center of her head explode.
Fuck around and find out.
Do you cherish your fingers?
You have 10 of them right now.
Yeah. I think I do, but it's going to be a single question presented to the both of you that you have to answer separately.
Awesome. We're going to paper, rock, scissors. Who goes first? So ask the question, and then we'll paper, rock, scissors. Who goes first? That's what we'll do.
Okay, my uncomfortable question for you guys is, why do you think you guys are in your 40s and in the dating scene? And is there something that you have done that you feel like has put you in this place?
That's a really good question.
That's a great question. As Bonnie and I both pause.
Essentially, it's like, I feel like to sum up your question, Jamey, tell me if I'm right about this. What is a narrative you tell yourself about why you're still single? And, what is a narrative you tell yourself? And, is there, who's to blame?
Yes. And was there a time in your life when that became your quote unquote truth? What is your narrative? What is your personal whipping post?
That's a hell of a question. Thanks, Jamey.
Paper, rock, scissors.
All right, here we go. Best 2 out of 3, right?
Best 2 out of 3.
All right, here we go. All right, scissors, cut, paper. Number one, again. Oh, fuck. Okay, now I did it. I jumped the gun on that one. There we go.
What?
Haha, paper covers rock. You go first, bitches.
As we know, Bonnie is the nice one. All right.
Jamey, your little giggle in the background was unacceptable.
Your timing was perfect. I can tell you exactly why I'm single, and Bonnie loves to call me out on it. For the longest time, I have been emotionally unavailable, and that comes through with, at the time, me trying to get my career and my professional life together. Like, I put a lot of energy into doing it to get my full license in Texas, because Texas, when I moved here, kind of fucked me.
Correct. One might say that's kind of what Texas does.
Yeah, pretty hard. So, you came from another state? Yeah, none of your experience counts.
Start from the beginning.
Yes, and I had to start over from scratch. And in the recent years, when I was single, all my energy and concentration, like, I had terrible tunnel vision. And it would have been disingenuous of me to try to go out and date in the mindset I was in. Because coupled with that, I'm still recovering from my past relationship. which I have spoken of numerous times before.
The New York one or the Texas one?
Both.
Yeah.
And I'm now just starting to dabble and dip my toes into this pool where it's like all of a sudden it's like professionally, Blake's life is going pretty good professionally and I have no complaints. And now it's like, hey, you got a whole personal life you can work on now. Oh. And I have my Keanu Reeves moments like, whoa, I have really neglected this part of my life for a few years now. Getting through COVID, going to therapy, recovering from, again, my past 2 relationships, and also learning how to be a better person in a relationship.
Whole ass human.
Whole ass human.
That's the shorthand that Blake and I use when we're talking about, what we're bringing to any relationship is just trying to be a whole ass human in it, and not, some sort of emotional amputee asking other people to be their fingers and legs and eyes and stuff.
Exactly. And also, as Bonnie likes to remind me, I am pushing 50 now.
I mean, you're not pushing it. It's on the event horizon.
I know. It's right around the corner.
I mean, that nuclear bomb is headed right at us and there's no deviation.
There's no deviation. And I want to be a better person moving into my next relationship or my next dating relationship. As Bonnie is rightfully so looking at me and smirking, I'm waiting for a follow-up question.
I'm defaulting the follow-up question to Jamey. Jamey, was that a satisfying answer from him, or do you have a follow-up question?
No, it is satisfying. I do want a follow-up question, Blake. You don't beat up on yourself because you focused your attention where you focused it because you felt like that's what you needed to do, even though it affected your dating life or your relationship life. You don't beat up on yourself or think negatively of yourself because you focused and did what you needed to do professionally, do you?
A little bit. Yeah.
Remember the auditing clown?
Yeah. Like I have an auditing cloud in my head that loves to tell me about every little thing that I feel I have not done correctly, I have done wrong, or can absolutely pull a V. And I'm going to flagellate myself on this bed of nails because I feel like I deserve it. And that's something I've really had to work through. I don't talk about it much, but it's something I've really had to work on in therapy where it's okay to give myself grace.
Absolutely. As you should.
And to respect the choices you made and that they were the right choices at the time.
Yeah. And since I became fully licensed in December and all of a sudden my phone and my emails just exploded with people going, Blake, you're fully licensed now. Can we talk? Happening on a daily basis. And it's really exciting for me to be where I'm at. Yeah, it's nice to be wanted. And also like my sense of humor is returning even more than it was. And I have so many things to look forward to moving into 50 now. So I can give myself this grace and go, you know what, Blake, it's okay. Let's do this stuff. How was that?
Cool.
Right on.
That's good. And Blake, I've been flying around in the Starship 50s for 5 years now, so you just come on in, buddy.
Beam me up, man. I'm ready to go. Like I told Bonnie this the other day, I'm really looking forward to what 50 has to offer this year. I'm excited about it. And it's probably the first time I've been excited about a birthday and about an age milestone.
Oh my God, in a long time.
Yeah.
Basically since you and I reconnected, and honestly, I would say every birthday you've had in fucking Texas since you moved here has been just this side of morbid and melancholy because you've been wrestling a huge alligator of a midlife crisis, frankly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That you've been trying to figure out, like, what got you here and where are you going? And
yeah.
That has been.
And also, I mean, like, as I'll disclose to all of you, and both of you know, is like all the health problems I had, like in 2017 on for a few years, like, okay, what the fuck's wrong with Blake today? I mean, and now that I have that under control, I can excitedly go, hey, I can look forward to things again.
Almost dying does change the way you look at life, or it should.
Exactly. I mean, and right now, like me and Death were running. I am 5-0 going, sorry, you ain't got me this time.
Fuck off, Death.
Not today.
Yeah,
Death,
not today.
Not today.
Satan, maybe. Death, no, not today.
Speaking of death, are we still going to do a wake for your 50th
Actually,
birthday?
I decided against it. I think we're gonna have a raucous moment.
Good.
Yeah, we're gonna have a
That's
raucous
good
moment.
idea.
It's gonna be wild.
Yeah, it's a hell of a thing to plan a wake for somebody's birthday.
Yeah.
I watched it unravel my father as a human, so I'm not quite sure it's the best thing to do, no matter how well of a joke you can take.
Yeah, I remember somebody having that conversation, and I was like, that sounds great, and it also sounds just
Yeah.
It's like agreeing to a
at the same
roast,
time.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck no, I don't want people talking shit about me all night. Doesn't sound like fun.
Oh, no. I mean, you want to talk shit. I mean, I get that now on a daily basis with Bonnie, so my life wouldn't change dramatically.
Except I'd be on a stage with a microphone and like-minded humans. Whatever.
Okay, so back to the uncomfortable question, Bonnie. Same question to you.
Sure.
Do I need
please.
to repeat it?
Buy me some time.
Because I don't know if I remember what the question was. Why do you feel like you are, is there a reason, was there a moment, anything that puts you in this situation of being in your 40s and dating? And, what do you feel like, is that something that you're responsible for, or was it just how life turned out? And was there a specific moment, or was it a combination of things? That sounded like a whole lot of questions.
Wow. Yeah. This is going to sound so horrible, but you guys will get it, right? Like, I mean, I feel like there's a ready for prime time answer to that is pithy, but also true and kind of, skates over a lot of lived realities of my life. And then I think there's a really long-winded explanation. I'm going to try to thread the needle between totally chicken shitting out on this question and also maybe not completely emotionally eviscerating myself. The, short answer is yes. I'm constantly told and constantly reminded that the only reason I'm single is because of myself. That I'm in charge of whether my particular aura has a green light or a red light. I'm in charge of whether, my vibe to men says, hey, good looking, or beware of dog. It's really just, it's in my control. And that I would say my goals in romantic and sexual relationships. And this is where it's weird. Really, since Blake and I broke up, I think Blake was maybe the last relationship that I was the slightest bit emotionally honest or vulnerable in. And there's something really kind of humbling to realize that about yourself. That the last emotionally honest and vulnerable relationship you were in fucking college, Bonnie. There's something about that is a little humbling and painful to recognize. But yeah, I just started seeing romantic and sexual relationships as some sort of game and some sort of power trip or some sort of front line in the ongoing battle between the sexes, and something that I used to feel good about myself at other people's expenses. And then just wound up being absolutely fucking not important in any other scenario. I never introduced any of my friends or my family or anybody who genuinely had a claim on my time, heart, and affection. I've never introduced them to anybody I was fucking. There became a real hard line between men who I was in a quote unquote romantic sexual relationship and then the rest of my fucking life. Never the two shall meet, never the twain shall pass. And because I don't know, because of a lot of reasons, because I was in a lot of really high pressure, high power jobs, and sex was just sort of like a maintenance thing that needed to happen for optimal professional health. And it was never a really priority because I didn't think that life was meant for someone like me.
Do you feel like your professional life or your quest to nail down your professional life had something to do with that?
Oh yeah, because my professional life was something I could control and something I understood better what it had to offer me. Romantic and sexual relationships always seem to be about surrendering power and giving power to someone else over you based on their fucking whims. And I just always resented it that, if I did commit to a relationship with a man, suddenly this man has way too much power over my day-to-day operations. And that just enrages me. And, my day-to-day operations professionally were very ambitious, and I had no time for a man that wasn't there to support me, was there to just take from me, and that was kind of my perception of men, is that they're just, I remember saying like, men are just so expensive, right? They're just so expensive. I don't have time to date because they're just so expensive. And they're like, well, don't they buy things? Like, yeah, I mean, even if they're buying me fucking dinner, men are expensive in time and in attention and in emotional support. And I've not really had a situation where men give what they demand. And that was my fault When all you're looking for is, kind of self-absorbed, entitled white male musicians, in a shocking turn of events, that tends to be what you find in every situation you go into. And, I was dating men who were reinforcing my poor opinion of men. And so it just became this ongoing cycle. And it allowed me to engage in my real love and addiction, which was professional success and overworking. And it just became this kind of perfect storm of life. And then, I kind of set fire to my life and decided to build it from the ground up again for the third time. And this time I wanted to see what actually, emotionally satisfying relationships might be like, both friendship, both family, and, romantic and sexual. And part of that was also recognizing and owning the behavior I had exhibited in the past that kept people and men from caring about me, from feeling close to me, from any vulnerability. The amount of times I've been called impenetrable, unknowable, intimidating, the amount of times in which I've had men compare me to fucking walled castles, or, weird Superman Fortress of Solitude ice metaphors it's you can only hear a theme in your feedback before you're like, maybe they're not all assholes, or maybe they are assholes, but what they're saying is true. It's not mutually exclusive. Assholes sometimes tell the truth, and oh, wait a minute, maybe I am the asshole. And realizing that, yeah, at the end of the day, what everybody always told me about dating is that it's entirely in my control. I'm the one who has red light or green light.
But that guy may come along that says those things to you, but also says, and I'm okay with that. I'm willing to bang on your walls until you open them up.
I liked how you kind of slipped a little like sexual in. You go, I'm going to bang on those walls.
Totally didn't mean it like that, but
I mean, maybe, therein lies the dream. I've been one of 5 girls on a trading floor of 125 traders. I kind of know how difficult it is to ask mere mortals to scale the Fortress of Solitude. And I don't know, I feel like it is my fault and also in my control, but also sort of, I feel like the story of my life has in many ways gone exactly how I wanted it to. I lived in absolute fucking mortal terror of getting pregnant. From the moment I got my period, and I got my period at 9 years old, and from the moment I got my period at 9 years old, I lived in daily terror of getting pregnant. And it controlled and consumed my life and influenced an awful lot of choices and decisions because I equated getting pregnant with the end of my life, with a jail closing. And so a lot of my choices to not get into relationships and to not pursue that is because I never, ever, ever, ever wanted to get pregnant. And it's not unrelated that a lot of me opening up emotionally to romantic and sexual relationships happened when a fucking goddamn doctor finally agreed to sterilize me. Finally. I've been asking for my tubes to be tied since I was 14 years old. And no goddamn doctor, male, female, Texas, California, Massachusetts, fucking New York, none of them would agree to it until I turned 40. Suddenly I was old enough to be trusted with making a choice about my desire to my fucking uterus. And a lot of things changed then. And honestly, realizing once my fertility, right? Like once I was fucking sterilized, once I knew that nobody could make me pregnant. Nobody could make me pregnant against my will. Nobody could make me pregnant on a fucking accident, on anything like that. Once I was finally in control of that, yes, I did open up a lot more to the entire world of men because they were no longer an existential threat to my life in that sense. Yes. And I was enraged and cried a lot around that because I started realizing exactly how much that fear impacted a lot of my choices. It sucks, but I did not find reaching 40 single and sterilized as some sort of, I mean, we talked about this. I don't consider it a failure. For me, there's like an inner part of me every time I think about that I hit 40 without having a man, without having a kid, and without having a mortgage. Like, I'm like, fuck yes. Like, I win. Winning. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I did not find the idea that I was single at 40 as a personal failure. I saw it as a success. And then once I was able to get my tubes tied, my whole world opened up in many ways. Wow. That was a lot of words. Sorry, Jamey.
Oh, no.
But, both of you guys know me really well, so I feel like I had to give an answer that you hadn't really heard before.
I didn't know the thing about the sterilization. I knew that you had that, but the fear, having a child, getting pregnant.
I mean, you know where I grew up,
I
Jamey,
was not-
right?
No, Bonnie, I'm not surprised, and I don't mean that in a shitty way. I just had never heard it, but it makes total sense. Because I know where you came from. I know a lot of the history. So, yeah, it makes total sense. And I can totally understand you
never,
not
under
wanting
any
to be a
circumstances, ever. And that has never wavered.
Yeah, totally get it.
Yeah. No, because, girls who get pregnant where I'm from, they're trapped there. Or they
end up single mother.
In single mothers, or they marry a military guy who'll take them away. But that's it. Your life's over. Your choices are severely limited the moment you get knocked up. And I was surrounded by women that was your girls, that was their number one fucking goal, because that meant that something would love them. And I was just like, no, that's the end of my life. Getting pregnant would have ended my life. It was the worst thing that I could imagine happening to me. And that's true. That actually helped me weather a lot of really horrific things that happened to me. Was that at least I'm not pregnant. Suit. So yeah, there you go. There's the uncomfortable question.
That was quite uncomfortable. Thank you guys both. I have to share this little part because you guys have shared so much personal information that I feel like I have to say this. I have to share a little bit of my failures in life. Not that that's what y'all are talking about. Lead towards, I'm assuming that you guys, are interested in the possibilities of finding a meaningful, lasting relationship, even if it's just a dating relationship in your 40s. Being the failed rock star that I am, and I don't mean that in a bad way because I probably wouldn't have survived it if I had become a rock star. I had, in my younger years, spending so much time not paying attention to what I was really supposed to be doing with my life or my career and running around thinking with the little head. I had 3 children, 3 different mothers. I was only married to one of them, and I love my children very much, but I was terrible at relationships. And I was married to the mother of my youngest son, and we didn't survive the 7-year itch. And when that divorce happened, I swore off serious relationships. There would not be another one. I would date, I would play around in the meat markets online, but I was not going to be any serious, never again, serious relationship. And I was a real dog about the whole situation. I was pretty jaded. And that's kind of where things stood for a while. But not even a year after my divorce, I met your sister. Last thing, like I said, the last thing I was looking for was a serious relationship.
I think that was the last thing she was looking for as well.
Yeah, and funny enough, after it started, we have been together now for 18 years.
God, has it really been that long?
We were together for 8 and we've been married for 10. And I nearly fucked that up because I was like, we've got a great relationship. We've been together for 7-8 years. It's great. Why get married?
Why fuck it up by getting married? Yeah, I remember that. Why fuck it up by getting married?
Old jaded look on it. And, I nearly lost her over that because when it finally clicked to me was one day when she said to me, and she'll probably kill me for sharing this, but she said, I just wanted somebody to love me enough to marry me. And I was like, fuck. Well, I do. And so I did. And we've been married for 10 years now. So 18 years altogether, longer than all of my relationships put together, was the one I was planning on not having. So go figure that shit out.
I remember that it was such a moment of rare vulnerability for her to actually admit that she wanted it, that she wanted to get married. It was something that, we've both been raised to deeply disvalue. When you've gone to enough of your own parents' multiple weddings, you understand exactly how unreliable and complicated a marriage can be. And that was, yeah, you're right. That was a real naked moment. I'm glad you paid attention to that, because that was a real naked moment for her to admit that she wanted to be married.
It was huge. And that's probably the largest wake the fuck up, Jamey, that I'd ever had in my life, because she didn't do it in a mean way. And I was so stuck in my own thought of being jaded towards marriage and, why get married and screw up a perfectly good relationship. But when she said those words to me, I was like, oh man, I've been looking at this totally wrong, and I don't have a fear of commitment. I have a fear of that word marriage. I have a fear of that. I have a jadedness towards that document, and that's stupid. Why fear a piece of paper? Because I know what I've got, and that a piece of paper is not actually going to change that. But it took me being in a relationship like the one I was in with her to realize that. So, I'm fortunate. I found somebody that wanted to put up with my silly ass. He actually wanted me to marry her, go figure.
No accounting for taste. It's true.
They say she's the smart one. That's funny. It's been great. So there's hope for you two yet.
Aw, thanks.
I wouldn't rush to judge on that, but yes.
And I wouldn't settle either. You guys, you find somebody that will put up with your shit for exactly how you are, and hopefully you'll find somebody that you can put up with their shit.
Right on.
Damn. Thank you so much, Jamey, for your very, eviscerating, uncomfortable questions, and then for sharing your own uncomfortable answer as well. This has been interesting and fun. Thank you. Have you enjoyed this experience of being kind of involved in the show?
Absolutely. It was nice. It was refreshing, though. And I really appreciate you guys allowing me this opportunity to be on this side of it.
Right on.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, we're really happy you came on with us.
And yeah, thank you for making us professional.
Yeah. I was about to say, once I have to edit this and listen to my own voice, I may feel totally different about it. So
welcome to my life. Yes.
You guys are lovely. I just don't know about listening to myself.
That's what we're here for. Emotional edge play. And do I really have a face made for radio?
Skin of a teenager.
I've been telling you both I want to start videoing you for your YouTube channel, but we haven't gotten there yet. So
yeah, you guys do
Blake
that.
And I'll keep working on you, Bonnie.
I hate the way I look on video, even though I know it's fine. It drives me insane.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps things up for us tonight.
Yeah, this has been amazing, and a hell of a inaugural interview trip.
Yeah. Jamey, thank you again for doing this with us.
Thank you so much.
Blake, I feel like you didn't talk enough tonight. I feel like I talked too much.
Not at all. Not at all. You were answering a lot of our questions.
I talked over him. It's my fault, but it's fine.
It's fine.
Well, Bonnie, I got a little secret for you. It's not the first time you've done that.
Was that expected? Thank you. That was a very reassuring pep talk. I appreciate that.
All right. I think it's time for a refill.
Damn straight. I'm Bonnie Neal.
I am Blake Thompson.
And I've been Jamey Young.
It's time for a refill.
Good night, guys.